Down on the shores of the southern Pacific, the railways of New Zealand's South Island offer the steam enthusiast an outstanding variety of preserved locomotives, large and small, that can be enjoyed in world-class scenic surroundings. We return to the coast at Timaru to rejoin our steam special as it prepares to continue southwards. Steam trains are a rarity here, especially double-headed ones, so they attract a huge turnout of the local populace. The warehouses and mills of Timaru provide a traditional setting for a majestic steam departure. Next, we come to Oamaru, once the centre of coastal trade before the coming of the railways. The traditional wooden station buildings survive, but are a little faded nowadays. Our steam special has too tight a schedule to stop here, so the locals have to settle for a quick look as she rattles through. Invisible from a passing train, but vital to the support of its permanent way, is the rocky foreshore of Oamaru Bay. Erosion has always been a problem here, and in the 1930s a new sea wall was constructed, incorporating dozens of old locomotives acting as steel reinforcement. Against expectations, some of them have proved indestructible by salt water for 70 years. Some sections of the improvised rampart seem as good as the day they were built, the embedded locomotive carcasses supporting hundreds of tons of rock. The scrap value of the engines in the 1930s was so low, due to worldwide recession after the Wall Street crash, it wasn't worth the cost of cutting them up. Here at Oamaru, they were worth more intact. Moving on now into Oamaru town itself, its former status can be seen from the grand stone buildings erected in its prosperous heyday as a major port and centre for the 19th century Otago gold rush. In the old harbour precinct, former merchants' offices and Victorian warehouses are mostly redundant now, and the railway serving them sees little use nowadays. But some of the track has been restored as a short tourist line. The Oamaru Harbour Steam and Rail Restoration Society has built a smart new station called Harbourside, situated beside the historic district. They use this attractive ex-industrial four-couple tank engine, originally supplied from Britain in the 1920s. further south near Kartiki, we catch the J-class streamliner blowing down at speed as the fireman purges the boiler water of impurities. This wooden trestle bridge is one of several original structures on the line requiring a speed restriction. After passing Blueskin Bay, our train climbs past Mitch's Crossing on the steepest hill section of the main South Line before reaching Dunedin. At the imposing and newly restored Dunedin station, our late-running special is greeted by a patient and admiring crowd. The locals may have turned out en masse to see the steam train, but for the first-time visitor to Dunedin, it's the station that's the big attraction. Dunedin, whose name is an old form of Edinburgh, was still, at the turn of the last century, the main commercial centre of New Zealand. When the new enlarged station was opened in 1906, its style and sheer size reflected the importance of the city it served. The spacious and attractive passenger platform may no longer see through expresses between Invercargill and Christchurch, but it's in no danger of becoming derelict. Dunedin Municipality has taken over the building and expertly restored it to its original state, as befits what is widely regarded as a national monument. All the tile work came from Royal Doulton in England, including 750,000 half-inch porcelain squares for the mosaic floor. Nothing like the 440 locomotive depicted ever appeared in New Zealand, but being redolent of 19th century engines on the Highland and Caledonian railways, it may have struck a chord with Dunedin's mainly Scottish city fathers. A bust of James MacAndrew, superintendent of Otago in the 1870s and keen supporter of rail construction, presides over the Otago Settlers Museum, whose new extension houses 2 historic Dunedin locomotives. On the left is Class JA number 1274, the last steam locomotive to be built in New Zealand in 1956. On the right is Josephine, pioneer loco on the Dunedin to Port Chalmers Railway, opened in 1873. A challenge to the photographer, she's at least protected from the elements, having been neglected in the open for many decades past. The loco is a double Fairlie, a type much favoured in New Zealand in the early years. Built by the Vulcan Foundry in England in 1872, she's the oldest locomotive in existence in New Zealand. While Josephine is preserved in Aspic, across town at St Kilda, near the coast, steam of the more active kind is to be found. The Ocean Beach Railway was the first preserved railway in New Zealand, opened in 1963 by the Otago Railway and Locomotive Society, who still run it today. The train is seen here climbing the purpose-built gradient, which is an extension of a disused local branch line. The Society's collection of small locomotives includes this attractive ex-industrial 060 tank. Known simply as the Car Stewart after its builder, it was imported from England in 1929. The clerestory coach dates from 1886, the stained glass top lights complemented by the once traditional gas mantle. Unheard of in the steam era, Ocean Beach's lady fireperson is a key figure among the Society's volunteers. The Car Stewart eases New Zealand's earliest surviving bogie vehicle back down the hill. Meanwhile, we return to the Edwardian splendour of Dunedin Station. Here, the daily Taieri Gorge Limited tourist train is ready to leave, powered by one of the DJ-class diesels with triple bogies, which replaced the ABs in Otago and Southland in 1968. Specially designed observation cars built locally are attached to these trains, which run on the former Otago Central Railway, a long branch completed in 1921, which ran northwestwards across the Central Plateau to Cromwell for a distance of 146 miles. It was cut back to Middlemarch at 40 miles after closure by New Zealand Railways in 1990. The retained section, including the now famous climb through the Taieri Gorge, was acquired by Dunedin City Council in the same year. It's been a tourism success story ever since. It is New Zealand's longest independent railway and the only one to operate passenger trains every day of the year. The service is aimed at the general tourist, but rail fans are catered for with the ever-popular photo stop on the Flatstream Viaduct. The Otago Excursion Train Trust has 5 of these DJ-class diesels, but the 10-ton axle load makes them a bit light on their feet when it comes to restarting on a 1 in 50 gradient. Return to steam was mooted early on, but despite having been the regular attraction for 70 years, was banned by the Forestry Service due to the fire risk. There was no longer the staff to man the fire prevention trolleys that used to patrol the line during dry spells. The answer was an oil-burning locomotive. and the rail fan's dream finally came true when mainline steam's familiar oil-burning AV Class Pacific number 663 made a trial run in 2001. It was an outstanding success and led to steam in the Taieri Gorge being included in the first Dunedin Steam Festival, which is now planned to be a biannual event. Hindon, at the limit of road access in the gorge, was always a regular stop in steam days, and until 1949 even had a refreshment room. The immaculate 663, now stationed at Mainline Steam's private facility at Christchurch, is historically perfect, as it was the AB class which monopolised all the loco haul trains on the Otago Central during the last 20 years of steam. The loco's proud owner, Ian Welch, joins the passengers in this classic photo opportunity, before number 663 sets off again. We were privileged to witness the passage of the gorge section from the Footplate, courtesy of Alan Campbell, Mainline Steam's South Island manager. His invitation to share his billy of hot railway tea was irresistible.
Roger, Grant, on our way. Go out aboard.
steam too has potential problems with the restart on the 1 in 50 grade, but this time more practical measures are taken.
Red, roger, we're just leaving number 10.
By now, the train has climbed out of the Taieri Valley and entered the high country at an elevation of 820 feet. Originally called Bare Wood, being close to the tree line, the top of the valley later acquired the more romantic local name of Pukerangi, meaning Hill of Heaven. At the station of Middlemarch, rail enthusiasts were outnumbered by local townsfolk who gathered to greet the first steam train on the Otago Central for over 30 years. A forlorn little A-class tank, borrowed from the Ocean Beach Railway, adorned the nearby picnic area, but otherwise there had been nothing but diesels here since a farewell to steam special in 1969. The AB's tender was filled up from a little stream which passes under the rails just before they peter out on the edge of the plain. The derelict trace of the railway from Middlemarch across the rocky plateau of central Otago has now been dedicated to the more energetic tourist who wishes to get away from it all. The cyclist's cross-country progress on the old trackbed is punctuated by abandoned stations, some with a few rails still intact. Across the Maniototo plain, the trackbed winds past the sheep stations it used to serve, until finally, 141 miles from Dunedin, it reaches Clyde, the terminus in Edwardian times, and again in the 10 years to closure in 1990. Close by, the Clyde hydroelectric dam now rises 100 metres above the valley of the Clutha River. Beneath what is now the Dunstan arm of the new lake lies the Otago Central's 1921 Cromwell extension, closed in 1980 and swallowed up by the rising waters. These photos by the late Derek Cross, kindly lent us by his son David, show an AB in the Cromwell Gorge with the daily goods in 1956. And at the Cromwell terminus, 154 miles from Dunedin, a steam passenger train, 2 years before the Cromwell extension lost its passenger service altogether. The station and the lower part of Cromwell town no longer exist. All that's left is a viewing platform and a wide expanse of water. We now move further west into the Piso mountain range on the way to Queenstown. En route are the 19th century Goldfields, which at one time were the greatest source of wealth in New Zealand. The Goldfields have been preserved informally, looking as though they were only abandoned recently instead of a century ago. The rash of shanty dwellings sprawling up the hillside housed workers from all around the world, including a large Chinese contingent whose visible traces remain. A popular attraction is the original mine machinery, kept in working order. Not all the equipment was driven by water power. As output increased, mobile steam engines came into use. This one was supplied from England by Garrett's of Leiston in rural Suffolk in 1870. But it wasn't a road locomotive, it had to be horse-drawn to its place of work, just like all transport serving the Goldfields. It was far too difficult to build a railway here, but in the narrowest part of the Taieri Gorge, a road to Queenstown was created by means of a suspension bridge, itself an engineering challenge. The Crown Range above the gorge affords a fine view of the mountain scenery surrounding Queenstown, now a popular resort on the shores of Lake Wakatipu. Here, South Otago's top attraction for the transport enthusiast is to be found, the venerable twin-screw steamship Earnslaw. She was built in 1912 for the New Zealand Railways, but now has a new life as a commercial pleasure steamer. With her elegant lines and shallow 7-foot draft, she is 160 foot long and weighs 330 tons. There's never any shortage of passengers at Queenstown for the 6 daily sailings, each being a 90-minute round trip to Water Peak Lake Resort. Earnslaw is coaled up twice a day, once on each side to keep the vessel in trim. The bunker capacity is 14 tons. Each of the 2 ship's boilers has a fire grate of 48 square feet, about the same as a large railway locomotive, and together they consume 1 ton of coal per hour. The stokers are probably the fittest men in Queenstown. On the saloon deck, passengers gather round for a bird's-eye view of the engine room operations, always a source of fascination. As the Earnslaw moves off from the jetty, her twin 500 horsepower, triple expansion condensing steam engines get into their stride. They can power her up to a speed of 19 knots, but a more sedate 12 knots is the usual demand placed upon them. All mechanical equipment on board is steam-driven, including the rudder. Meanwhile, passengers who've had their fill of the fresh lake breeze can relax with a sing-along in the after saloon. Earnslaw's usual destination these days is the old lakeside farmstead at Water Peak, now a resort for day trippers and customers for the special cruise and dine evening service. 8 Shire horses harnessed together show us what 19th century heavy transport was like in the backcountry, not just on the farms, but in the Goldfields as well. Earnslaw is unique in being New Zealand's only ship to have a Category 1 heritage order, making it illegal to scrap or even alter her in any way. So hopefully Lake Wakatipu's Lady of the Lake will steam past the snow-capped range of the Remarkables for many years to come. Long gone are the days when she would swing left round the Queenstown buoy and head down the southern arm of the lake to the Kingston railhead, 22 miles away. The road beside the lake was opened in 1936, when Earnslaw lost her monopoly of the Southland connection. The sheep that often crowded her decks now had little need of her, and the daily service on the railway ceased a year later. For the next 30 years, Earnslaw would steam down the southern arm twice and then only once a week to meet the few remaining freight trains and the odd seasonal passenger excursion. The railway's end was inevitable, but fortunately the Kingston Flyer tourist service, which started in 1971, has saved the most scenic part of the line, a now isolated 9-mile section at the Kingston end. The line starts on the lake shore at Kingston, beside the slipway where Earnslaw was assembled in 1912 from parts brought up by train from Dunedin. The rails on the deserted quay are now used to stable the Kingston Flyer's vintage railway carriages. They comprise 7 classic wooden straight-sided vintage cars, among them the ever-popular 1898 gallery coach, with the steel mesh birdcage running the whole length of the vehicle, unlike the half gallery we saw on New Zealand's only other surviving coach of this type at Pleasant Point. One guard's van has a mailbox still priced in old money, while the other one just made it into the age of the dollar before being withdrawn. The Kingston Flyer is powered by one of 2 AB-class Pacifics, kept on the books by the railways after the end of regular steam in 1971 and put on the Flyer excursion trains, which started in the same year. Though now privately owned, they are the only New Zealand steam locomotives to remain in continuous service since they were built. Number 795 was originally a WAB Class 464 tank engine, a type derived from the AB and used on mainline passenger. Displaced by new JA Class Mountains in the late 40s, Number 795, along with 10 others of its class, was converted to its base design, the lighter and more versatile AB Pacific. Side tanks and bunker were removed, with a new trailing truck and second-hand tender added. ride on the Flyer is just about smooth enough to enjoy tea in the luxury of first class, though smart clothing is not recommended. The buffet counter is probably a safer bet. "9 miles from Kingston, the little period-style halt at Fairlight in the middle of nowhere is now the terminus. It was erected in 1982 after the service from Lunsdon had been withdrawn. Locomotives are turned on a triangle, the third side of which is all that's left of the original line to the south. The line was cut in 1979 due to extensive flood damage near Garston, which was beyond economic repair. Garston's former road rail bridge is now just a farm access. Next is Lumsden, 37 miles from Kingston, the Southland junction where the restored Flyer used to start in the 1970s when it was still connected to the rail network. Just over a mile away, on the disused Mossburn branch, the banks of the Rarity River provide the setting for one of New Zealand's classic tales of steam preservation. In the 1920s, the river began to change course and erode the railway embankment. Just as at Oamaru on the coast, the solution was to use old locomotives to strengthen the bank and hold back the river. It remained effective for the life of the branch, which closed in 1982. Preservationists could then start to pull out some of the submerged remains, this time with better prospects than Oamaru, as only fresh water was involved. From amongst these hulks, a rare bird has emerged. Showing nothing more than slight pitting after 60 years underwater, its restored driving wheels are now back on the tracks and ready to roll. The loco is none other than K-Class number 92, a classic narrow-gauge American 242 Express passenger engine. There were 8 of them, all built by the Rogers Company in New Jersey in 1878. When they first arrived in New Zealand, skeptics dismissed them as mere Yankee toys, but were silenced when the first of these handsome-looking machines was put on the Dunedin Mail and reached 50 miles an hour, a narrow-gauge record in its time. If elegance and function are related, the 1870s high-speed tender bogies certainly make the point. For all their glamour and dash, the dainty Ks with a mere £7,000 tractive effort could hardly be described as powerful. When the mainline expresses grew too heavy for them, they went to Kingston, being dubbed the Flyers for their turn of speed which revolutionised branch line travel in the 1890s. For over 30 years they were based at Gore, near the site of the present-day Croydon Museum, owned by Colin Smith, who bought this survivor in 1998 from the loco's original rescuers, the Fiordland Vintage Machinery Club. He's seen here lovingly tending his prize during its 3-year stay on its old stamping ground at Kingston in celebration of its 125th birthday. The Rogers is being prepared for a short private special for Colin Smith during the lunch interval before the regular flyer departs with its AB Pacific in the afternoon. Russell Glendinning, former NZR driver and operating manager of the Flyer, is at the controls while owner Colin Smith keeps fit with the coal shovel. Pioneer Ks spent their last 30 years racing up Fairlight Glen with the Flyer, carrying passengers from the Queenstown steamboats to Invercargill and Gore with connections for Dunedin. Steam in New Zealand attracts rail fans from around the world. The fascinating variety shown in this programme should help to explain why.